Hello. So I'm stood at my altar right now. Welcome back to another video if you're returning on my channel, or welcome to my necklace isn't out, or welcome to the video if you've never seen me before. So I just upload random mystical insights to my channel. I look creepy because I've got the incense flowing and I've got my candles going. I've just done some ritual, prayer, whatever. And there's some things that I want to talk about, just insights that I have been having from the gods in the last couple of days, brewing for weeks, as it always does. And I may mention just some random, okay, when I talk about this, I'm going to be as real as possible in terms of what, the revelations I get and the, what kind of leads to them, what triggers me to start the conversation in my head with the gods to get the insight that I'm getting. So maybe it's just because they're trying to cut through to me in my lazy mode, but also the algorithm knows me pretty well on YouTube, so it knows what I like. And I'm sure that it obviously some AI thing is listening to all of us, whatever. But there'll be things that pop up on my channel, pop up on my recommendation lists, and today I got kind of just like a funny cartoon explanation video about how a priestess would work in ancient Egypt, and kind of what their role was in society and blah blah blah, just about priestesses in ancient Egypt. So I watched that and then it got me thinking about my own role. I really cringe when I say this as a priestess, but really asking myself, and the gods, specifically Sekhmet, about what priestess means, because I've had a couple visions and before I even watched this video, years ago, things that have built up to my relationship with Sekhmet, where she's given me the label healer and she's given me the label of priestess. And I don't get what she's on about. I don't know what she means. I don't know if this means I have to do a career, or at least I didn't anyway, and I kind of have a vague idea now, but and that's been building for some time. But so it got me questioning these things with her, going, what is it that you want me to do? Because I really feel inspired by this. I really feel pulled to this. Obviously, personal devotion, giving offerings, prayer, that's all kind of a thing that I do anyway, and it's not just Sekhmet. Obviously, I've mentioned before I have a devotion to Venus also, the many multiple faces of Venus, specifically 4 faces of Venus, but I'm yet to make a video about that. Whatever, but that's not today. So, but then that was today, so we've got to move back a little bit. I was watching on YouTube, because that's all I do with my spare time. I mean, that's not a joke, I pretty much do, but I was watching an oracle card reading, tarot reading, whatever, channeling from the Morrigan, and I believe on YouTube she's just called the Morrigan's Oracle. I followed her specifically for a very long time. I believe her name is Izzy, and she used to have a jewel channel years ago with this other witch, and I followed her for years on and off, and she's recently become a dedicant to the Morrigan, whatever. And I've had this weird flirtation with the Morrigan for years, yeah, for a good few years now, where I've been intrigued by her and I tried to worship her and I just got nothing back, and then I got I got inklings back and forth from her, and because I am very influenced by the Jewish ancient mystic Kabbalah, so the Tree of Life specifically, and I take that Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn one and run with it basically. So I'm not obviously doing traditional Jewish mysticism with the Kabbalah Tree of Life, I'm going off the Golden Dawn thing, but the whole idea that the Sephirots are linked to the planets in astrology is my jam. It's kind of what makes the most sense to me, and it's been the foundations of my practice and understanding the gods ever since. So one thing that I associated the Morrigan with, and I still do, is with the planet Mars. So that would be the Sephiroth of... Can I even remember the name of it? Because I'm really bad at it. Jesus Christ, I was literally talking about it earlier today. It'll come back to me, let's move on. That's going to bother me. But Mars, right? The planetary energy of Mars. On one of the Tree of Life that I can't remember yet the name of. So she to me is Mars. She's the element, she's the archetype of war. But I never really understood what she meant by that, basically. I didn't understand in what context is war. But recently, through a vision, because I was watching this video on YouTube, and the whole message was about, she's trying to contact you, but you think it's about something else, and you're not interested in that thing, so you're ignoring her, and you don't understand that part of the signs and synchronicities that you're getting right now is like her trying to reach out to you. And this is an opportunity for big spiritual development. And, you know, when I watch these things, I don't know what made me click on it. Because I mean, I do. There's the Morrigan and Sekhmet, but I'll get to that in a minute. What made, like, usually I just don't like these kind of videos. I haven't really followed this girl for a while because I'm just not into what she's doing, which is absolutely fair. Not like I'm against it. I'm just, that wasn't what I cared about. And I didn't have a relationship with the Morrigan, so I was like, bye. And I kind of felt like this did resonate with me, but I was getting really pissed off at the same time because I was like, I'm so sick of feeling like the Morrigan's dangling the carrot and giving me these like cryptic messages and telling me, oh, there's something coming and you better like... That's the way it felt watching this girl for years talk about her many different gods anyway, and this is how I feel with the Morrigan. Like there's... And sometimes this is the way I just feel with the gods, like there's always this dangling of the carrot feeling... But this is a me issue, and I'll get into it in a minute, where my destiny is yet to be revealed to me all the time, and I'm just never going to be able to get there. So I kind of just instantly felt the need to astral journey. So I stopped what I was doing, and ultimately I just ended up in this space. I won't go into it because it's personal. It's a sacred space within myself, and it's not like weird or anything, it's just, I don't really get into details. But essentially I met the Morrigan, and she just laid it all out to me, and she was like, this is why I'm here, and this is what you need to do. And I felt the connection click, so I now feel connected to the Morrigan. As of last night, really. Which is when I watched this video, which I think I just said earlier in the week, so it technically was earlier in the week. So now I completely understand the assignment, and this is why I want to do the video, to kind of talk about that. So going back to the whole Mars thing and the Sephiroth and the Kabbalah, whatever. The way she described it to me in the vision, that she is Mars on Earth, meaning she is the divine feminine, this is the Morrigan, sorry, divine feminine manifestation of will, and will being, you know, a forceful action. It's a very martial energy in astrology, right? And that manifesting through Earth is, you know, the will of the land, your will, your physical will. And, you know, when I work with Venus and all this kind of stuff, that's my desire. So what you're going to do with the desire, you're going to transform it into will, and you're going to get what you want. Her form of will that manifests through her followers most of the time is magic, and that is usually when people describe themselves as witches and people describe themselves as sorcerers or whatever. It's about it's about spellcraft. And I mentioned this on the channel a few times before, where I was like, I really wanted, like, I always had this urge to do spellcraft or do something like that, but I never really know what to do. And like, I don't really understand it. It doesn't make sense to me as a mystic, you know, in terms of what I'm trying to achieve. And in terms of being a mystic, you're all about divine order and divine alignment with the gods. So why would you go out of your way to manifest your will when you don't even know what you want? So I had all these dilemmas. And she kind of just laid it out for me, like, this is how you're going to do it from now on. And then we'll lead up to... So basically I'm in training now to do spellcraft and whatever. So that was my whole thing with the Morrigan, and it makes so much sense. How does this all link to Sekhmet, right? So a couple of days before was kind of questioning not questioning, but I always kind of check in with the gods. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you've given me these, archetypes of healer and priestess, and you haven't really told me anything what to do. I've been really struggling with personal things that I know that I'm working with Sekhmet around. So it's to do with like anger and just emotional regulation and energy regulation in general. So I kind of was like, what's going on between us? And she kind of then, once all this happened with the Morrigan, she was like, once you've kind of done your thing with her, you'll understand where I fit in now. And you know what it's like when you channel, if you do that, like, the kind of separate voice feeling, but it comes from within, and it's just said, like, there's not a lot of you in there. There's something unlocks and the message comes through and it goes, there you go. And then you're like, oh, I realise now. So it's kind of like a divine illumination moment where you understand the message and the road kind of opens a bit more before you. That's the way it feels in terms of understanding and where you need to go next. So I was like, oh, and then I was kind of like, as I was kind of doing the ritual where I give her offering of like a red liquid. It's just cordial, like with water to represent kind of like the idea of her drinking blood, which is in her mythology. And it dawned on me as I did that, it was kind of like the Morrigan is the blood. You are the vessel and you offer this to Sekhmet. You offer your rage to Sekhmet. Your magic is rage. So it all clicked kind of in that moment. After this was last night, so the timeline is very weird. So that all clicked for me, and I was like, oh, so I need to do spellcraft with the Morrigan first, and then I'll kind of understand what my relationship is more with Sekhmet. And I think it's heavily to do with, obviously, energy regulation and all this kind of stuff, but it goes deeper than that, like in a way I can't really put in words. So I just understood that this connection between the Morrigan and Sekhmet in my path is quite interesting. As an aside note, hopefully this will all weave together at the end because I need to get it out, but like the whole thing with the chalice, like the symbology of a chalice, of the cups in tarot, let's say, like a chalice, and how that mythology runs through just all the different cultures in the world. So with Venus, there is like, like a vessel, like being fulfilled, abundance, all this kind of stuff. And water itself is a Venusian element. It's the ruling element of Venus. So it's relationships, it's the inner realm, it's feelings, emotions, all that kind of stuff. We all know what that represents, right? The depth of the ocean itself, as well as the oceans within you, and like all that kind of stuff. And then obviously I offer Sekhmet a chalice. There's no chalice in her mythology, but like the offering of it, she drinks from a cup. So there is it in her mythology. I don't know why I didn't say that. And then this kind of linkage to the Morrigan, but Morgan Le Fay in Celtic mythology, because that's been coming up for me. I just decided like one night, this was like last week, to just start reading about Arthurian legend, because I've never understood it. I've never really gotten the fascination with it. The Christian with the magic on top of it just felt like really like a mythological soup that I just couldn't understand from like a medieval context. So I started kind of looking into that. I looked into like the Mists of Avalon, and I watched the movie and stuff. And again, this idea of the chalice that pops up. And yes, this is a Venusian thing. Yes, this is a Sekhmet thing, but it's also a Morrigan thing with her connections to the Lady of the Lake, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. So this kind of like, there's something there, and like I feel like I'm not touching on it. But that's what's been going on. And obviously I watched that video tonight, and it kind of just brought up more questions about the whole priestess thing. And that's when I started to gain insights again from her, where it was like, people who work with Sekhmet are usually people who have to manage their energy in a certain way. That blood is like what soothes you. What is that thing that you think is blood and that you want to consume and just rip, like, you know, get justice from, but what can actually tame you and teach you to keep in divine order and not in divine chaos. Because the way my Mars is, my Mars is out of control in my life. I have real issues with Mars, and that Sephiroth on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life that I can't remember the name of. So it's out of control, and I feel that connection with Sekhmet, where she's kind of like this rage of God, and it's kind of this thing with the Morrigan where it's like the spellcraft is the taming. This is how you're going to learn. You're going to use magic to learn how to deal with that, and therefore the priestess role and the healer role can come through in your work with Sekhmet eventually. That's the way I feel like things are going. And really, it's like looking at Morrigan and Sekhmet on opposite sides of the spectrum of anger, of rage, of war. You know, Sekhmet is solar, and obviously Morrigan is Martian, but it's like that for me, they're holding two sides of the scales. They're balancing two sides of the scales for me. And it's just interesting, like how they're connected like that. So yeah, and on a side note, I want to talk about just priestess in general. One thing that I was questioning tonight with Sekhmet was, what does it even mean to be a priestess? Like, it's kind of cringe. I've never really got on board with this modern idea of when people call themselves a priestess or a healer, because I feel like I've been given those titles from her and they've not been explained yet, which I know they will be. But what is it all about? And it's kind of, it doesn't have to be in an actual physical temple, people coming to you and all the rest of it, but that's something I will talk on later. I just wanted to throw this insight out there because it's really cool. So thank you. Leave your comments if you give a damn. Thank you. Bye.